Welcome everyone to the CXps knowledge sharing module number 7, KSM number 7. This week we're bringing Danny McFall from Transloc. So if you have not watched the Q&A that he and I did, I really had a lot of fun because I got to be a part of that one, and Danny always has great insights. So we're going to keep this going today. I see there's already a ton of questions in the mural. The mural link is in the chat dialogue, so if you want to jump in and post any questions there, you can also use the chat, or Danny is a pretty flexible guy, so you can just unmute and shout your question right out to Danny by all means. We'll go for about 30 minutes and then we'll do our unstructured kind of breakout time afterwards. I do want to remind everyone we have our next knowledge sharing module in 2 weeks. So if you want to put that on your calendar, we have Michelle Rashawn who will be joining us. She's got some good insights on formalized CX processes, good to watch. And then we are moving into kind of the last half of our membership year. So we'll be going from a twice a month cadence down to a once a month cadence for these knowledge sharing modules. So I know things tend to be getting a bit busier for everyone as we're coming out of the COVID world. So I think the once a month cadence will probably work well for a lot of us, although I'll miss seeing a lot of you every other week. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And Danny, I'm going to highlight you since you'll be our featured speaker. Thanks for joining us this week.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So I know we recorded your session, about 2 months ago. So in the time since, anything else that's popped into your mind, or anything that you just forgot to say that you want to say to all of us today?
Not particularly. I went back and I watched it, and it was funny to go, man, that was 2 months ago in COVID time. In COVID years, that's what, 3 years was 2 months ago. So we've, of course, things have changed a bit as far as with my clients have attempted to go back to school. So that's been fun dealing with that. So there's been a lot of being flexible that we've been having to do in order to adjust to the COVID time. So I can dig into that if that comes up, but that's kind of been my world lately. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for taking time. We probably didn't think too far ahead, picking this week, the go back to school time to bring you on. So I thank you very much for prioritizing this. I appreciate that.
No problem.
I see there's already 8 questions, so I'm going to start knocking those out. But again, those of you who are here live, if you have a question, you can raise your hand or unmute and jump in. Put them in the chat dialogue. We'd love to hear and ask Danny any of those questions. So what have your success methodologies done for your fee structure? So I think this is a question on as you migrated to a client success model or customer success model, have you changed your pricing in any way to capture that value that you're creating?
We haven't, as far as I'm aware. So that's something that is, we want it to be something that's included in just the overall service that you're getting. What we've started to do now, so as we've merged, we have a lot more, we have several more clients. And so there are some that need the client success touch. And then of course, there's some that are kind of low touch and don't necessarily need that. So at this point, we're trying to prioritize the clients that need the CSM versus the ones that don't. And then I think that once that's structured out, we're still kind of in flux with that. Then if there is a pricing, we do have some high dollar accounts or our high touch accounts that would probably require just having one CSM. And so, or that's their only account that they would have. In those, they're thinking about maybe possibly saying, okay, since you have a dedicated CSM, your contract might work a little different. But that's the only that I've heard of that is with those particular clients, not for our general client base.
Hey
Great.
Danny, that was actually my question.
Okay,
Can I maybe reword that a little bit
absolutely.
differently?
Yeah.
So with your shift from kind of that reactive support to that
hmm
proactive success management,
hmm
do you see the opportunity for an increase in your fee structure because of the additional positive outcomes that are happening for your client?
Absolutely. I do see, and there have been talks. The thing is that the and I'll probably keep coming back to this, the road that we were on was kind of offset by the merger. And so the theory was to at least have kind of like a year of these are our successes and this is
Sure.
what the client success manager brings to you. That kind of got thrown off. And so now we're actually onboarding new client success managers, then COVID. So a lot of the initial plans have kind of been pushed by the wayside and that we're going to try to revisit in 2021. The upside to COVID, if there is one, is that this is kind of an opportunity for us to kind of plan while we're in
Right.
the wait mode, when we're not getting, well, the summer was that. Now we're we're full on with school being back in, but it's planning for that. So I do see that being something that we'd be able to enact in the next year. We just want to make sure that we have a period of time where we can say this is pre CSM, post CSM. This is the added value. This is why we're going to charge you XYZ.
Right. Yeah, I love that methodology because otherwise you could be leaving something on the table or you could be pricing it too high without some
Ex-
measurements. So that's great.
exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So I'm going to jump to another question because I think these lean in are really closely to each other. Uh, Tell us about your proactive success management approach versus reactive management.
So my proactive management approach versus the reactive. I prefer the proactive. If there's anything that I can get in front of before it becomes an issue, it generally tends to go better. I tend to try and do that by being as well informed with the customer as possible. I'll use examples as far as with COVID. So since that's been my life for this past few months, everything is in flux, and sometimes even my clients don't necessarily know exactly what's going to happen next. Things can change on a dime. So what I've done is I've added in a part of my day of just generally checking the news feeds, Twitter, things of that nature, dealing with that particular client. I want to be as well versed as I can in what's happening, so that I can react to them, especially in our situation where if the schools don't have kids on campus, they're not going to be running their transit. They're not going to necessarily need to have us. So it's very pertinent that I am aware of it. I can see that coming so that we can enact with the customer, let them know that we have pricing options if need be. Instead of them canceling the account, we can put it on hold. We could suspend payment, whatever the options are, hitting them with that before they get to the point that they're like, oh my goodness, we can't afford this, just cancel everything. I've found that in the situations where I have proactively reached out to the customers, giving them the options that we can do, even if it is, you don't have to pay us anything until the end of 2020, we'll hold it. What about next year? We'll work with things then. They've appreciated it. They've taken that offer. In some instances, they've been able to still find a way to pay us in order to keep the contract because they appreciate us reaching out. So it benefits the relationship, and it also kind of helps that it's less of a fire if we know it's coming. You can't unfortunately have everything be proactive. I can't see everything that happens. So there are reactive moments. Again, I'll use COVID. We'll probably come to that a lot. I apologize in advance, but it is the most fluid situation of how you can't necessarily be prepared for everything. So in some instances, you have to react more than you can be proactive. And in those, the reactive, I mean, we're good if I have a knowledge base of the customer. I can use that to help me deal with the situation quicker. But if it's a reactive situation, especially if it's dealing with contracts, accounting, all the other departments that I need to get together, it's going to be a slower process. The customer's going to wait, and they're not going to be able to tell their higher ups what they can do. So it creates more of a stressful situation. They're more understanding, but that's based on the rapport that's been built. In a general situation, if you don't have that, they're not going to understand why you can't just do this. It's COVID. You should know what's going on. Go ahead and shut this down or give me this deal. So proactive is definitely better, and I've experienced way better results with that. But reactive is always going to be a part of it.
Right, right. Uh, I see there's a follow-up question on that, but I want to shift gears a little bit to
Mhm.
some culture questions that are up here. How has
Okay.
the client success transition benefited overall employee culture?
I honestly, I would say it's a positive effect on the culture, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a CSM, but it's a situation of the other departments know that they have a point person to go to. Using a quarterback analogy, I mean, we've even put out, the training videos of it's very simple. If you have a question about a customer, contact the CSM. They're going to be able to lead you. They're going to either be able to take care of the situation, let you know what's going on beforehand, or even handle it without you getting involved. And having that peace of mind of, oh man, do I need to reach out to this person or whatever the case may be, it has helped. And also, just in general, since I have to interact, or all departments have to interact with the CSMs, it helps us all to build a relationship. We work together every day on multiple clients. And so it just builds that rapport, not only with the clients, but with the team in general. So I've experienced just in general in my experience, especially even with the new teams, the new companies being merged together. Me being a CSM, I have been able to enact with the new people that I assume other departments haven't had a chance to because they don't necessarily interact. So to having the CSM be the hub of it definitely does help to bring unity to the company and just helps everyone, I don't know, kind of just gel together in a sense.
Sounds like the client success might have unintentionally broken down some of the internal corporate silos.
That would absolutely be something that I would say it is weird and also great to kind of be the bridge that that brings everybody together. But yeah, it's a good part of the role.
Uh, Another culture question here. You mentioned in the video how the transition helped you be more you. Um, how have you seen other team members be more you or more them in their situations as they've embraced the CSM role?
I've It's an interesting thing because of the fact that, and initially the CSM role was, there's only, I think, maybe five or six of us. And so uh, each one of us, as far as interacting with our customers, we've done things where we brought customers to Transloc for a kind of a customer advocate team. And so basically we bring them in so we can ask them questions, show them around, whatever the case may be. And so in that, those customers got to see other CSMs and how they interact with their customers. So in a more, I guess this is more specific to Transloc. I'll speak to a broader term a little bit later, but it's them seeing how I interact in my kind of playful nature or more relaxed tone, or the way that they enjoy the t-shirts and things like that. It has let them open up parts of themselves. And so there's other teammates that have kind of deeper relationships. They understand that it's okay, and it helps to benefit them, and so it grows their relationships. And so I have other teammates that are like, yeah, they were talking about their kids going to school and what daycare to use and these kind of things. And so different from the topics that I share with my clients, but in the same vein of kind of building that extra relationship. So I've seen a lot of the CSMs and even the new ones that we've trained, kind of in my training to them, I let them know that it's okay to be themselves. If you feel out that customer, and if something happens, and if you can, crack a joke, appropriate, of course, but something to kind of break the ice, set the tone, the more of your personality that they see, the more they realize that you're a person and not just this role, this robot that's here to help me do A, B, C, or D. And I've seen that kind of spread out, and I appreciate it because everyone kind of brings their own unique tone to it, and I think that makes a more successful agile company.
So it sounds like you guys are really embracing the individual authenticity of who you are and
Hmm.
using that as a foundation for those relationships.
Hmm.
Was it were there any team members who were afraid of that or uh, did they push back on that at all?
There have been a couple that and more so from the ones that transitioned from account manager to CSM. So it's been me trying to explain to them what the difference is. And it's almost, and I don't know if it's in particular this training, or I've been in an account management role, and I've not necessarily been told don't have a personality, but I have been told this is what we're doing. You should just do this. Don't do this thing over here. Just stay in this lane. So it's a lot of it is kind of going against what their initial training is. They're like, well, we're not supposed to ask about this. We're not supposed to do this or that. Or if this, then this. It's harder to kind of get them to think outside of the box. That's what being a CSM is that if a customer's upset and something happened, then don't just say, okay, we'll credit them back, their payment for last month. That'll make them happy. No. Like, what could really, like, that's great and all, but this is not a monetary thing. What can we do to repair the relationship, not their wallet? And so think outside the box to do something along those lines. What can we do? Even if it's getting a director on the line, having a meeting in the days where we could go travel to see them, do something that's a big gesture that has more of an effect. And so it's getting them to understand that it's okay to do those things and that we encourage them to do those things. So that's kind of been the only pushback I would say per se, is that to get them to think outside of that box.
Yeah. And it was interesting. You say instead of just accrediting to fix the wallet, you're really working to fix the relationship. Have you seen that mindset lead to actually increased expenditures rather than having to do a credit?
Absolutely. I mean, that to me, and I touched on it, I think, in the video, but that's honestly, the relationship is the key to all of it. If they trust you, then ultimately they'll buy from you, they'll expand their business with you because they will invest in you as you invest in them. So if you do surface level actions, you're going to get surface level response. If you do deeper level actions, you'll get deeper level responses. I always encourage my customers and I let them know you're a partner. Like, we're teammates in this. You are with me in this. I am you in these meetings. Like, when I go to our sprint reviews with our product team and everything, like, I am the voice of the customer. I'm the advocate for the customer. And so my job is to know my customer well enough to know that if product says, well, we're doing this, but this customer over here would really appreciate if we do this. And not just this customer, I have 7 or 8 of them that are going through a similar thing, to bring that weight to say, hey, maybe we should change it in this direction. And then going back into those meetings and letting the client know that, like, not only did I hear you, I spoke for you, and now we're going to be moving in this direction. Those things show, like, it's almost amazing. Most of the success that I had in the beginning in turning clients that were upset and ready to go to clients that were willing to stay was because of the fact that I simply listened and that I did things that they asked for. That is worth more than any credits that you can give to the account, any dollars that you can put back in their pockets, because they're going to earn money. They're successful companies. What they're not going to earn is respect unless you give them a reason to. So that to me is worth its weight in gold, and it's why I always go with that. I mean, we'll give them a credit too if that's the case, but I also want to add an extra added benefit.
Right. So there's a question here. I think just about everyone on the call, I know there's a couple that do have client success managers already in place, but most of us in the audience don't. With the transition that had to happen, your staff weren't hired as client success managers. Not everyone might have had what it took to be a success manager. So was there any turnover because people just weren't able to make the jump? And if so, how did you handle that?
Well, we handled it in a way of, we gave them the option to pursue another role. So instead of saying, hey, you're not cut out to be a CSM, it's okay, well, we have, if you want to do more of a support type role, you can do that, where it's more doing these things and not necessarily have to step outside of the box. It's less responsibility, more akin to kind of what you were used to, or, different roles within the company. Hey, do you want to try and go out in sales, or maybe accounting, something like that? So they phrased it in that. There were a couple that decided to stick along and found out very quickly that it wasn't necessarily their cup of tea. So I'll say maybe a couple of people that didn't quite make the transition. And it wasn't a situation of they hated it. It wasn't a situation of they were unhappy. It was a realization of, this just isn't something that I feel comfortable doing. They needed a lot more structure. And I've worked in situations where you have the structure, and I would say a good CSM role is not one that's a structured CSM role. because if you put us in boxes, then you limit our capabilities. And so I always try to make sure that we're breaking boxes. And of course, there are people that you go to and things that you do, and there are certain repeatable things, but every day is a different day. Every client's a different client, and every day with a client is a different thing. So being able to just kind of have that creativity is the reason why I enjoy it, because I get to embrace my creativity. As well as having a plan for things, I'm also pretty good at things on the fly. And so being able to kind of bring those worlds together kind of makes me my best self. And so I try to pull that from the folks. And most people are like, oh, really? I can do this. And then there's some that are like, I'd rather not. I'd rather just A and B. That's my day. So with those folks, we said, well, there's an opening over here. Would you like to pursue that? And that's kind of where that went.
Great. You alluded to something earlier, so there's a follow-up question here. What parameters help you decide which clients need a CSM?
At this point, and it's still kind of in flux, but the conversation that's happening is that because it's easy to say, well, if they bring in X amount of dollars, then these are the clients that need that. But then there are smaller clients that are in key areas that have relationships that are more of a strategic client. So the conversation is being had there. There are, of course, the big clients that are definitely going to have CSMs. There are ones that aren't going to have them. There are little ones that will lead to, if that relationship is grown, then we can blossom and spread out in that particular city or state or whatever the case may be. So it's a combination of monthly recurring revenue and also strategic placement of the client. And then also just, we have enough data now on some of our clients of people that reach out to us constantly, or people that literally, I hit them with the emails and calls and they're just like, yeah, I'm good. If you could just keep my system working, that's fine. I don't want to do, anything like that. So it's a situation of hearing the client. You don't want to give a CSM to a client that would just rather not speak to you and just kind of can only reach out to you when they need you. So fortunately, we have enough data on those clients to kind of put them in different buckets. The newer clients that we've acquired, unfortunately, there's not as much data because they've had the account managers. So we're placing CSMs in those particular situations. We're using the information that we have to kind of get that. But again, it's a combination of the two, because it's smaller clients with great growth potential. I do see that is absolutely one of the key factors as well. And that's generally how we tend to look at those smaller clients in key areas, because they can lead to, even if they themselves aren't going to necessarily have the funds to, like, I want to have 50 vehicles. They could give a reference to this particular company or that particular company that will then want to do 50 vehicles. So we always want to make sure that we're looking at it strategically and also financially.
Great. I see more questions coming in. Do you have any ideas as a client success manager of handling challenging client feedback?
Yes. Number one would be just listen. It's and also not to take it personally, which is hard. I have the fortunate background of I have a little insight to me. I worked at one point in time at American Express as a debt collector. And so this was at I think it was 2008, 2009, during the housing crash crisis and the recession, and when no one had any money. So I was calling people, asking them to give me money for their American Express card when they couldn't pay their mortgage. So the wonderful things they said to me. So I've learned to not take that kind of feedback personally. I've also learned that if you just listen to them and the customer kind of vents out their frustration, and then you pull the key points from there, if you just say, I understand, this is what I heard. So what I heard was, and then here are the things that I can do to help you. I always try to give a win back if possible. Even if they give you a big problem, look for the key thing that you can fix the quickest to give them a result, to show them that you heard them, that you're making leeway, and that will buy you enough rapport and time to fix the bigger problem, because then they will trust you. What I ended up having to do, taking over from the account managers before, was rebuild that trust. And a lot of it had been just washed away. So whatever I could do for them, no matter how small, it's one thing to have words, but make sure that you have something with your words, and it will go farther than you realize. and then it will turn those challenging customers into not challenging customers. Because what you learn from feedback is that if they're giving you challenging feedback, then they are still invested, then they still care. It's the client that doesn't talk to you anymore. It's the one that won't respond to your emails. Those are the ones that are already gone. So if they're still engaged, you still have a chance. So just utilize that chance. If they're talking to you, listen, because that's how you're going to win them back.
Don't think I could have said it better myself, Danny. Another question here, going towards the business side. Have you seen any significant growth with client accounts that have a CSM?
Yes, I have seen a significant growth. I have experienced a significant growth with my clients, but not just me. It's they've, the CSMs are constantly getting feedback and shout outs and, the different company channels for different things, different extensions on accounts, more so than sales. Oh, this customer signed a new contract for 5 years and they added this many vehicles, or we gave them this entirely new program that we didn't even know that they were interested in. Well, the CSM did because the CSM had been listening. So I have seen a lot of growth that it's just, it ties into the CSM role. The clients that, I mean, it's as silly as it sounds, if you water a plant, it's going to grow. So the CSMs are essentially giving that water, giving that nurturing, those nutrients to the clients, and they're going to grow. You're going to see results if you give them that positive feedback, if you listen to them. So we've seen that all around the board, and it's been something that the company's been happy and excited to see. Again, I kind of alluded to it beforehand, but it's even been more so prevalent going through COVID. Not any particular numbers or anything, but there was a push for retention. There was a push for just hold on to people, reach out to the customers. If they're thinking about leaving, let them know that, they can hold on, or whatever the case may be. But if you listen to the client, if you address their needs, even in this time, as I kind of mentioned beforehand, with they need to do contact tracing. There's always something that a client needs, even if it's in a financially stressful time. You just have to paint the picture and let them know and show them the need for it and how they absolutely need it. Like, it's not something that Transloc was like, hey, you know what? We've always had badge scanning and automatic passenger count, and we've had all these things, but now in COVID, now these things are critical. Now these things are clutch. So positioning that not in a mass email that's like, check out all the fancy things we got here, versus, hey, do you want to make sure that your kids aren't sick? Here's how you would do that. Do you want to make sure that your directors and the people that are breathing down your necks about how we're going to make sure that we don't send sick kids back to their parents? Like, contact tracing, Transloc provides that for you. Like, it's not like a thing of we're digging into your pockets. It's, do you want us to help you make your life easier? Then allow me to do so. Listen to this thing. And so, you do that. So, I mean, I have, even though the company itself's been like save, hold, my approach has been the same, because my approach is always going to be the same. It's no matter what the situation is, pandemic, non-pandemic, my customers have needs. And even if the needs change, my approach doesn't. My approach is still to listen and to understand what those needs are, to be flexible to deal with those needs.
Great. And we're coming up at 30 minutes. There's still a few questions. I'm going to throw one more at you, and then you've got the mural link. If there's a couple in here that you want to comment on later, we can certainly do that. But another one that you mentioned, and so this is a follow-up question, has the client success model helped with referral generation?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And again, it speaks to building the relationships. Again, speaking to like the smaller clients and the strategic clients, if you will. They're strategic because of the fact that, like, who they can talk to. We get reached out all the time by sales and by marketing as to who would be a good reference for XYZ. And, oh, I can tell you this client, they have a similar model to this particular school. They have a similar use case. They would be great. Also, they already have this relationship. I mean, I am in a world where all universities talk to each other. Like, there's just assumed that they do, no matter where they're at across the world. So making sure that when they speak about you, they're saying good things goes a long way. We've had, clients reach out to us that we haven't even approached that said, I heard from XYZ school that you guys have a great program, let's go with that. Or, you know, I've seen this in operation and I've heard nothing but great things about your customer service. Like, how can we become a part of that? So, I mean, it again, it's the relationship is key, and it'll bring in referrals hand over fist.
Right. And I know I said that was the last question, but I forgot. I do have one more critical one. What's the t-shirt of the day, Danny?
The t-shirt of the day is it is the Mandalorian holding up Baby Yoda, as a play on the Lion King and Simba.
Yes.
It's one of my faves. I like to combine things together if possible. So
Ever since I found out about your t-shirt passion, the number of times I've almost clicked to buy you a t-shirt and just mail it to you because I know you would appreciate them has been absurd. So
you would be probably not surprised how many links people just send me to this is a shirt you would buy. And yep, I do it. My wife would like for me to stop, but it is what it is.
Great. Well, hey, Danny, thank you so very much. We certainly appreciate it, and valuable insights. I love that not only did you introduce us to a client success model, but you really spoke to it from a perspective of being in the trenches doing client success. And I thought that was really helpful and really useful and fun. So thank you very much for joining us.
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.